And this is going to be probably the most important module here. The biggest thing that we need to understand when it comes down to it is the education is phenomenal, but we have to understand the application, and we also have to understand who we need to become to be able to achieve the results, the physique, or whatever life it is that we're truly chasing. So, what I want to do here, I want to start off with one more identity. I took a lot of inspiration off Ed Milet for this one. This is a lesson that I've continued to learn over time, and it just never fails. As you keep evolving, you're always going to have to adapt to a new identity. You're going to have to change yourself. You're going to have to change the way you think, the way you operate, your habits, your day to day. You are going to have to become a new person. So you're always going to be changing your identity. This is never going to stop if you want to continue growing. My biggest question to you is, are you willing to let go of who you are for who you wish to become? If so, let's get the hell into this. Let's get you some amazing results. For anybody that's new, my name is Jose. I am the owner of The Will Within. I've been coaching for about 4 years now. I was, overweight as a kid, and I always wanted to, be jacked. I wanted to game. I wanted to, live an amazing lifestyle. And that is what I do today. And I want to make sure that you guys can get into the best shape that you possibly can, become confident, and create that new identity of that better version of yourself. So let's go ahead and just dive into the first thing, right? So we're going to break this off into 6 different parts. The first one's going to be, what is your identity? Number 2 is going to be adjusting your thermostat. 3 is going to be faith. Then we got intentions. We got associations at 5th. And then lastly, creating self-confidence. So buckle up, guys. We got a really good one for you guys. So, first foremost, what is identity? So I truly believe identity is who you are, your thoughts, your habits, and what you truly believe to your core. That is what I believe is your true identity. And the biggest thing that we have to understand is, for most of us, our identity was picked for us. A lot of us haven't, taken control of our lives or questioned a lot of the thoughts that we've, had up until this day. And the reason why I say that is because as a kid, your mind didn't operate the same way. You didn't know everything that you know now. You weren't an independent human being. So a lot of your thought patterns and beliefs came from your parents, your siblings, those people around you. But as you grow older, you start to become your own person. You have your own thought patterns. You have your own life. And this is ultimately what we're here to do. So I want you to understand you're always going to be in control of your identity and who you choose to be. For now, what I'll leave you with is a quote that I heard from Alex Hormozi. I'm not exactly sure who he got it from, but this was one of those things that hit home, and it really changed my perspective in a lot of things in life. And that quote was, we question all things, we question all beliefs except the beliefs that we truly believe. Those we never think to question. And the reason why that impacted me so much was, when I heard that, that is when I thought back and I asked myself, what are some of the thoughts that I currently have in this moment that weren't originally mine? They were passed down by my parents or by my siblings, whoever it might have been, right? And a perfect example of this was, again, my parents' relationship isn't the healthiest. It isn't the best. However, I knew that coming into a relationship, I didn't want to bring any of that in, right? So because my parents didn't have the best relationship, I didn't have to continue having the same type of relationship, because my ex, that's the relationship I had. I had the same thing that my parents had. And coming into this new relationship that I'm currently in now, it's not even new. I've been in this for years. But the reason why I bring that up is because it allowed me to really break a lot of thought patterns or a lot of beliefs that I thought were real. I thought I was going to struggle with relationships. I thought I was going to struggle with food. I thought I was going to be fat forever. No, that is just something that I believed for a very long time, but I was able to overcome those beliefs. So remember, guys, question all your beliefs, because you can change, right? Now we're going to dive into adjusting your thermostat. And the reason why I put thermostat in here is because it is a perfect analogy for us as human beings. For example, if you are a 70-degree human being, you are going to keep bringing everything back down to a 70 degree. You know, when we look at a thermometer, if it's 100 degrees outside, but we have it set for 70, guess what? That's going to kick in and it's going to bring it back down to 70. Vice versa, if it's 30 degrees outside, it's going to kick up and it's going to warm the room back up, or it's going to warm the house back up to 70 degrees. Your life is the exact same manner. Your identity is your thermostat. And that is why this is so important. If you see yourself as a 70-degree human, you are going to operate like a 70-degree human in every single aspect of your life, in work, in your relationships, and everything that you do. So we need to make sure that we can catch ourselves whenever we are gravitating back to our old patterns, which is a 70-degree human being, right? We want to be at 100 degrees. And this is where most people struggle, because once you start surpassing who you currently are and your identity, you're going to face a lot of resistance. So again, if you're a 70-degree person, but you're slowly getting out of that and you're improving your work ethic, you're improving your discipline, you're consistently changing habits, and you're choosing to do the harder things day in, day out, there's going to be a point where you're going to face that resistance and it's going to want to bring you back down to 70 degrees. And this is absolutely normal. And it's something that a lot of people get scared of, but we shouldn't. This is a good sign. This means that you are leveling up and you need to continue pushing, because you are going to become that person. You are leveling up into that next stage of your life. And this is where you actually need to be the most adherent. And when you know this, you are more aware of your old patterns and you can hold yourself back from actually falling into them. The biggest thing for you guys is to remember is you are the best negotiator with yourself. You're always going to find a reason to go back down to 70 degrees. Nobody can BS you better than you can BS yourself. You know what pretty little words to tell yourself for you to be like, okay, today was a hard day. I need to rest. I'm not going to go to the gym and I'm not going to track my macros because it's tedious. Fuck that shit. You need to make sure that you catch these habits that you're falling back into and break out of them so you can create new habits. So remember, you are the thermostat to your life. And a big thing that comes with it is if you raise yourself to an 100-degree human, guess what? The people around you are going to feel that. The people around you are going to feel that internal pressure of wanting to level up, wanting to get better. And that is what we're here to do. We want to make sure that we are inspiring those around us to want to better themselves. That's ultimately the goal. So keep yourself at 100 degrees always. Be that change that you want to see. When we talk about faith, the biggest thing here with faith is we're not talking about religion. When I talk about faith is having the belief that you can achieve the goal you are setting out to do. And there is no better example than looking up at people who have done exactly what you want to do. Most of you guys that are in here, you want to get fit, you want to look good naked, you want to be able to take your shirt off, at the beach and feel confident with it. Cool. That is achievable. There's so many people out there that have already done it. So there's a belief there, right? You know that it can be accomplished. So you need to remind yourself, hey, there's people that were in worse situations that were still able to make it happen. So can I, because ultimately there's nothing that separates you from the other person other than the choices that you're making on a day-to-day basis. That is it. That is the only thing that's separating you, your current self, from the better version, fit, confident self that you want to be. Intentions. When we do anything, we don't want to just do it to do it. We want to make sure that everything that we're doing is with a positive intent. We want to make sure that the actions that we're taking are aligning to the individual that we want to become. One of the things that I've done with a lot of clients, and it works really phenomenal for being intentional, is writing a brand book, or some other people call it an alter ego. But ultimately, what you're doing here is an exercise. You are becoming very vividly clear on the person that you need to or want to become. And now you become very detailed with it. What do you wear? How are you going to talk? How are you going to, how are you going to dress? How are you going to walk? How are you going to talk? How are you going to show up to work? What are you going to be doing? What does your day look like? What are your habits? When you sit down and you paint a clear picture of the person that you want or need to become, the actions are already chosen for you. For example, if you made a brand book that says everything that you need to do to become this person, whenever you're choosing to take an action, for example, like skipping the gym, and you wrote in your brand book, I'm going to make sure that I hit the gym at least 3 or 4 times this week. And you know that if you miss that day, it isn't going to align with that. You immediately know what you have to do in that very moment. You can no longer negotiate with yourself because you already told yourself that that version needs to do this. And when the decision's already made, it's so much easier to go do it. And that's where most of us struggle. We negotiate, we find a way out. When that decision's already made and you have a clear game plan on how to get there, all that's left is action, and things become so easy when you do that. So we want to make sure that we're being intentional. We want to make sure that we get a clear picture of who we want to become, because again, what you're doing here is ultimately to better yourself, which is ultimately going to better a lot of other people. About to sneeze. Give me a second here. Oh man, at least my nose is cleared up. Next is going to be association. So association is a really important one, and I have a perfect life example for this. So when we talk about associations, we're talking about the people around us. We want to make sure that we have high-level individuals around us. And the reason why we want this is because, again, if you're leveling up, the people around you that you're close with are going to feel that pressure. Guess what? You're going to feel that pressure as well if you're around 100-degree human beings. When I was in San Diego, I was in a pretty bad spot. And before that, I was binging. I was living in Monterey. I had one friend that was serious about, fitness and business. And I didn't have a lot of other people that I can really talk to about this stuff. When I went out to San Diego for a 3-day weekend, I decided, like, I'm going to move out here. Second day, I had 2 months, 3 months worth of rent. And I said, I'm going to make it happen regardless. Pack my stuff, quit my job, moved middle of COVID. And I had that belief, right? But ultimately, I also had a lot of people around me now that were on the same mission. They were ahead of me. So I had that pressure of wanting to level up. And during that time, it was probably about like 3 months in, I noticed it really hard. I was facing a lot of resistance. The old me, a lot of old habits that I had when I was living in Monterey, I was kind of trying to go back to them, but because I had so much external pressure to show up, to become better, because I wanted to be around these people, I just continued executing. I just couldn't go back to the old version of me because I had the right people. And ultimately, if you can surround yourself with the right people, this is going to make the journey so much easier because you have more people to connect with. You have more people that are on the same journey, having the same struggles, pushing through, just like you are. So it forces you to level up with them. So you want to make sure that you're very careful with who you keep around. And ultimately, if you have people around you that aren't fitting the best version of yourself, you have to be okay letting go. You're not going to have childhood friends forever, and it's a hard lesson to learn. It's a hard thing to go through. But ultimately, if people aren't leveling up with you, it's going to be really hard because ultimately you're becoming a different person and they're staying the same. And you can never feel bad about that. Lastly, creating self-confidence. So the biggest thing to remember with self-confidence and faith is they're different. When you look at faith, it's having the belief something's possible. When you look at confidence, is knowing you have the grit, the work ethic, and the discipline to make that shit happen. When we talk about self-confidence, I used to look at it as this magical trait that, popular kids had because, as a kid, I wasn't a very popular kid. I was a gamer. I was overweight. I didn't have a lot of confidence, couldn't talk to girls, couldn't do any of that. I looked to them and I'm like, they just have something I don't. And at that time, I didn't understand how self-confidence worked. Currently now, I understand how this works. And it's funny because when I was younger, I wouldn't be able to hang out with the cool kids. I wouldn't be able to hang out with the popular kids. I wouldn't fit in because, again, I just wasn't a confident human being. I look at my circle now, and when I talk to them, they were popular kids in high school. They're popular kids now. And the reason why is because when somebody is confident, it attracts other people. They want to be around them because everybody loves a confident individual. The one lesson that I needed to learn to start being around these people, and the one habit that they all share in common, is they keep the promises that they made to themselves. That's ultimately the secret to confidence. When you say you're going to do something, you go do it. Doesn't matter what is going on, how hard things are happening, or what whatever excuse you want to give yourself, when you've made that promise, you fulfill that promise. And I think where a lot of people mess up here is they make really big promises. They go from training 0 days at the gym and not tracking their meals to trying to get 6 days in the gym and making sure that they're meal prepping to the T and making sure every gram is accounted for. It doesn't have to be that way. You can start with 2 to 3 days at the gym. You can start with tracking at least 3 days, then move it up to 4, then move it up to 5. Ultimately, what matters here is keeping that promise. And if you keep that promise, guess what? You're building that confidence. And the reason why it works that way is because self-confidence is almost like the trust that you have within yourself. And when you're not following through with what you said you were going to do, what the fuck is there to feel confident about? You internally know that you aren't showing up and you aren't fulfilling what is required of you. You're never going to be confident if you always know that you're giving less than what you can actually give. So if you walk away from this, you have to understand, if you want to become a confident human being, you need to follow through with what you said you were going to do. That is ultimately the secret to it all. So this right here breaks down the first module. And the reason why I wanted to put this first is because this is something that you need to understand before stepping into this. You need to let go of the old version of yourself to become a better version. And a lot of people hold on to this. A lot of people are very scared of this. But that person that you want to be, the one that's fit, the one that's confident, the one that's successful, when you get there, you're never going to regret losing who you were prior. And I can tell you that from experience for myself. And up to this day, I've never met a person that went all in on themselves, looked back and said, I regret it. So again, goal for this, become very clear on the person you want to become. I would 100% say create an alter ego or a brand book. Get very, very clear about who you need to become, habits, how you're going to look, how you're going to act, how you're going to talk. That way, your decision's already made. And all you need to do is go execute. I'll catch you guys in lesson 2. Hopefully, you guys were able to take a lot from this.